Hey storyteller, if you're in the US, happy Independence Day. Since this video is releasing on July 4th, which is Independence Day for those of us in the US, I thought it might be fun to discuss independent publishing. Well, and the other publishing models along with it. When writers think about getting published, they're usually imagining a company, a publishing house, paying them money for the rights to produce and distribute their stories in book form. This long-standing practice called traditional publishing is a bit more complicated than that. It's also not the only method for getting your books into the hands of readers. These days, it's easier than ever to get your books out into the world. But with so many options for publishing, is there one model that's better than the others? Will one make you more legit as an author than the other ones? And what are the options anyway? Welcome to this week's writer coaching session, where we'll discuss the different publishing models and the factors you need to consider when choosing which is the best path for your book. Hi, I'm Bridget from B Squared Writer Coaching. I'm an author, editor, and your story coach, here to help you make your story powerful, polished, and publishable. First, I have a gift for you just for visiting my channel. My free workshop, 6 Essential Elements of a Powerful Story. Before you can submit to publishers or hit the upload button to publish on your own, you need a powerful story to sell. This 25-minute video workshop walks you through everything your story needs in order to impact readers and publishers. It's packed with tips on how to power up your plot, characters, conflicts, setting, and theme, plus how to write all this in a way that makes readers feel like they're living the adventure of your story. Just click the link in the description or visit b2writercoaching.com/workshop. That's the letter B, the number 2, writercoaching.com/workshop to access it today. And be sure to stick around to the end of the video so you won't miss this week's Power Up, a super practical action step you can take in the story you're working on right now. Today's video is divided into 2 sections. Part 1 is an overview of the 3 main publishing models you can choose from, and in Part 2 we'll discuss 3 factors that you'll need to consider when choosing which path is best for your story. When we think of publishing models, we normally think of 3 main types: traditional, independent, and hybrid. If you wish to work with a publishing house and have your book traditionally published, you'll need to go through a rather lengthy process with many steps. This begins with researching the many publishing companies that are out there to compile a list of the ones that are best fit for your story. Some publishers specialize in a specific genre or age group. Some only accept submissions from literary agents or if they've met you at a writer's conference and specifically asked for your manuscript. A literary agent is a publishing industry professional who represents the author in exchange for a percentage of the money the author makes. Usually about 15% is the commission. The agent does not get paid until you do. So if you're ever researching agents and come across someone who wants to charge a reading fee or any other kind of fee to represent you, that's a scam, so run the other way. If you're considering traditional publication, having a literary agent represent you is a fantastic idea, especially if it's your first time. To acquire a literary agent's representation, though, you'll need to research agents just like you will with publishing companies. Agents sometimes also specialize in particular genres or age groups, and their websites will list their submission guidelines and the things they're interested in. You may also want to look into the types of books they've represented before to get an idea of the types of stories they like to see if they're a good fit for you. What does a literary agent do for you? Well, first, they shop your story to various publishing companies. They use their industry contacts to open doors you couldn't on your own in a publishing company. Once they secure a publishing deal for you, they will help you negotiate terms for your contract, and they know all the industry jargon and legal terminology that you may not be familiar with, so this can be extremely helpful when you're starting out in traditional publishing. The agent will also help you sell publishing rights to foreign markets. Like if you want to get your book published in German, for example, the agent can help you with that. He or she can help you sell the rights to audiobook producers to have your book published as an audiobook, and shop your book to TV and movie production companies if that's something you're interested in. Once you've done your research and have decided on the publishing companies and literary agents you'd like to approach, it's time to write a query letter. This is a 1-page sales pitch for your book. It includes a teaser-type description of your book, lists your credentials, and closes with an offer to send more information or the entire manuscript. For details on how to write a query letter, check out the video linked above, and I'll also link it in the description. Depending on the submission guidelines for the publisher or agent you're submitting to, you may send the query letter alone or attach a book proposal, which can include several elements. This could be a 1 or 2 page synopsis, the first 3 chapters or 50 pages of your manuscript, the whole manuscript if you've met this person and they've asked for it, and many other types of things. You'll just have to research what that publisher or agent wants for their submissions. The most important thing is to give them exactly what they ask for, no more and no less. You don't want to give them any reason to reject your story before they ever read it. Once you've submitted, several things can happen. Either the editor at the publishing house or literary agent may just reject your submission, or they may accept your submission and agree to represent you or offer you a publishing contract, or they may ask for more information. If a publishing company grants you a book deal, they are offering to pay you for the right to produce, distribute, and sell your book. You and a representative of the publishing company will sign a contract which outlines the types of rights the publishing company is purchasing from you. These rights can include which formats the publishing company will produce your book in, including ebook, print, audio, the countries in which the publishing company has the right to sell your book, and whether the company is contracting for sequels or wants first option for the possibility of publishing sequels. Sometimes publishing companies will offer you a multi-book contract if you have all the books in a series written ahead of time. Sometimes they want to see how the first book does before they commit themselves to publishing sequels. You'll then work with an in-house editor from the publishing company who may make structural changes, content changes, including the title sometimes, and request other revisions. Once you've completed the editing process, the publishing company is responsible for all the other steps involved in the publishing process. When it comes to marketing, they will do a fair share of marketing, but you'll also be responsible for some of that as well. The other most common publishing model is independent publishing, also called indie publishing or self-publishing. With advances in technology and our ability to order almost anything on the internet, it's easier than ever for authors to get their books into the hands of readers without needing to be chosen by a traditional publishing company. This publishing model has given more authors the chance to get their stories out there and readers more choices in the types of books that they read and the number of books they can read. But what does publishing on your own involve? Does it mean you have to do the artwork for the cover, print the book on your inkjet printer and figure out a way to bind it, and then try to convince bookstores to put it on the shelves? Absolutely not. It does, however, mean that you'll have to do some added research, learn a few skills, possibly learn more aspects of the publishing process, and possibly hire professionals to perform tasks that either you don't have the skills or the time to accomplish yourself. Independent authors are responsible for producing the final draft of the book and then for formatting, cover design, marketing, distribution, all those pieces that a publishing company would normally do. If you publish independently, you must also decide which formats you want to publish in, whether that's ebook, print, audio, a combination of all 3 or 2 of these, and whether you want paperback or hardcover if you produce print books. Also, if you produce print books, you'll be responsible for getting proof copies shipped to yourself so that you can make sure that everything looks the way it should once it's printed. And if you want to sell print versions of the book in person at either conferences or events, or to give some as giveaways, you'll be responsible for paying for the cost of production and the shipping on those copies. To minimize costs and time, many self-publishing authors choose to just publish the ebook version. The vast readership for ebooks has grown tremendously into many, many countries. For this, people use e-reader devices like Amazon's Kindle or Nook from Barnes & Noble, or they may use apps like Apple Books, Kobo, and others. This format does not require the upfront costs of producing physical books. This format also provides more opportunities for accessibility than physical books, since most e-reader devices and apps allow the user to increase the font size, change the contrast, switch from dark mode to light mode, etc. Ebooks are also often more cost effective for readers in countries outside the United States because distribution of physical books can get expensive with added overseas shipping charges, depending on the company you're using to print your books, and especially with print on demand companies. Sometimes there are added shipping charges and added taxes. If you decide to publish independently, you'll have many different options, but they all fit into two main categories: either hiring a company to do the publishing for you, or the DIY method, in which you do all this yourself. Author services companies can perform many of the tasks a traditional publisher would, but you need to do your research because some of these companies are scams, or if they're not exactly scams, they do overcharge and inflate the prices on certain services you could even do for free. The safer and more cost-effective approach, though it is more work-intensive, is to do all this yourself. It does involve hiring editors, cover designers, possibly interior book formatters. You can hire someone to write your book description if you're not feeling comfortable with doing that the first time, plus performing some of these tasks on your own. You'll have to do all the uploading to retail sites, to your online printing company, and get your own ISBN, which is your International Serial Book Number. There are many tasks involved. We won't go into all the details, but if you'd like to know more about the publishing process and what's involved, specifically either in traditional publishing or self-publishing, let me know in the comments and we can make a video about that in the future. Several years ago, many people in the publishing industry and readers considered a self-published book and its author somehow inferior to those that were traditionally published. That has largely changed, though there are still some people who frown upon self-published books. Granted, there are some self-published books out there that are still lower quality because it is easy to get material out there. The technology and the tools that are available now make producing a book quick and fairly easy compared to the way it used to be. However, there is a rise in quality in self-published books, and readers are more discerning. So they're looking for good quality books, and if the book isn't, it will be reflected in the reviews, which can hurt the book's sales and distribution on retail sites. Another thing that helps is the availability of freelance professionals to help authors get their books published in a way that does reflect the same quality you would find in a traditionally published book. Freelance professionals can include editors, cover designers, book formatters, copywriters to write your book description, and the list goes on. There are also individuals and companies who will upload your books to all the major retailers for either a small percentage, usually about 10% of the royalties, or a fee. The third type of publishing model we can use is called hybrid publishing. This can be a little confusing because you may hear of a hybrid author, which is a person who has published both independently and traditionally. So maybe this person has some books that are traditionally published and then chooses to publish others on her own. Many best-selling authors and famous authors do this. Brandon Sanderson, for example, who is well known for his epic fantasy, has published many books through traditional publishers, but also chose to publish some independently. Hybrid publishing, however, is sort of a cross between independent publishing and traditional publishing. How this works is you have a traditional publishing company that will publish your book under their brand and use their marketing credentials for distributing or marketing your book, but they don't do all the processes involved. The company may choose certain things that they will be responsible for, and then the author has to do the rest. In one example of this, the owner of a company that was a traditional publishing company decided to switch to hybrid. And so what she does is she requires her authors to hire her to edit their books so she knows that they're good quality, and she will let the author use her publishing company's brand, logo. I think they probably do ISBNs through the publishing company, and all the authors associated with that company help each other market the books. They promote each other, and they also may help with other services. She also knows several good cover designers who she'll recommend to the author, but then the author has to do certain other tasks independently. One of a hybrid publishing company's benefits may be that authors trade services. For example, you may be really good at social media marketing, so you'll help the other authors who publish through your company to advertise their books that way, while someone else maybe has connections with radio stations or other forms of PR. Or someone else might be good at editing, so they help you with the editing process. So how do you choose which publishing model to pursue? Well, before we get into the factors that you need to consider, if you're finding this helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you won't miss future writer coaching sessions. There are three main factors we need to consider when choosing a publishing path: time, cost and responsibility, and control. Since hybrid publishing falls along a spectrum between traditional and independent publishing with aspects of both, as we discuss the factors involved in choosing a publishing model, we'll focus only on traditional and independent publishing. The first thing to consider is time. How long will it take to get your book from finished manuscript into the hands of your readers? That depends on which publishing model you go for. Seeking traditional publication is a time-consuming process with no guarantee that the book will be accepted. When you first submit your query letter or book proposal package, it will end up in what we call the slush pile. This used to be a literal pile of manuscripts and submissions that someone at the publishing house or literary agent would have to weed through. Now it's usually going to be a bunch of emails in the agent or publisher's inbox. As you might guess, publishing companies and literary agents receive hundreds and thousands of query letters, so it's easy for your manuscript to get lost in that slush pile. Most of them also require at least 3 months of wait time before they will get back to you, if they get back to you. Often a publishing company will say, if you don't hear from us in 3 months or 6 months or whatever their time frame is, you can assume that your book has been rejected. Similarly, many publishing companies do not accept simultaneous submissions. This means you will have to submit to one company at a time and wait for their time period, their 3 months, to elapse before it's okay to send it to someone else. So if you get rejected right away, you can go ahead and submit to someone else, but if you wait and never hear from the company, you might wait 3 months for each company you submit to. The exception to this usually is if you have a literary agent, then that person can submit your book to multiple publishing companies at once. But even getting a literary agent to represent you is a time-consuming process because they receive lots of submissions as well. You'll have to go through sending your manuscript or query letter to a number of literary agents before you're accepted. Most authors receive many rejection letters before they finally get representation or become accepted for a publishing deal. If ever, some never become accepted. Then, once you do have a publishing deal, it takes time to negotiate the contract. Once all that's in place, it can take 6 months or several years before your book is actually out there. I have known authors who were waiting for their books to be published, and the publishing company said it would take 2 years. But then the imprint, the branch of the publishing company that was going to produce their book, was dissolved. And so they waited all that time expecting their book to be published, and it was not. So then they had to turn around and send it to other publishers or publish independently. One person I know decided to publish independently. She was just done with the whole process. With independent publishing, the author can skip the entire submission and acceptance process and go straight to producing the book and then distributing it. The most time-consuming part of independent publishing is usually getting your book edited and possibly the cover design, depending on how intricate your cover is going to be. If you're writing science fiction or fantasy, you may have original artwork or photo shoots involved, so the cover design may take a little longer. Editing is usually going to take the longest and be the most expensive portion of your process. Depending on how many of the steps you decide to do yourself, the rest of the process can go pretty fast. Formatting your own book using software like Vellum can take hours, and uploading to retail sites can take a few days. Some retail sites or print-on-demand companies require a 24-hour to 48-hour time for the company to do some quality checks on the files to make sure everything is working correctly before your book is available for distribution. Also, if you're creating physical books, you'll want to order proof copies from your printing company, and it can take a while for the company to print the books and then ship them to you. Then you'll need to check the physical book to make sure your cover's lining up correctly, the pages all look the way they should, pages are not printed on the wrong side, things like that. You'd be amazed how many issues can come up. And then if the proof isn't acceptable, you have to go back to the printing company and make corrections to the files or have the company make adjustments and do the whole process again. Then once you've accepted the proof and everything looks good, you can put your book up for distribution. I usually advise people to allow at least a couple months between when you have your final edits done and when you want the book to be available to the public for sale, so that you can get all the bugs worked out of any issues with the print version if you're going to do print, and your ebook versions all uploaded so you can have everything published at the same time. The next factor to consider is cost and responsibility. These sound like two different factors, and they sort of are, but they are so closely linked I thought we could group them together. If you are fortunate enough to get a book deal with a traditional publishing company, they will take on the following costs and responsibilities: editing the book's structure and content, copy editing and proofreading, which would be finding all the typos and spelling errors, the minute details of the editing, designing the book's interior and cover, printing the book, distributing and selling the book in all the formats you've agreed upon to retail sites, online and physical bookstores, and some marketing. You'll still be responsible for some of the marketing, but the publishing company will do some of that using the larger audience associated with their brand. When you decide to publish independently, writing the book is just the beginning. You must hire a professional freelance editor, or in some cases, you could trade editorial services with another author if that author is a very skilled editor. I normally don't recommend that, but it can work in some cases. You'll need to either create cover art or hire a cover designer, either format your interior of your book yourself or hire a book formatter. Manage the printing process using a company like Ingram Spark or KDP Print to create print-on-demand books. And what that means is when a person orders your book, let's say on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com, then the print-on-demand company produces that copy and sends it out to the readers. So you don't have thousands of books that are pre-printed that you have to keep in your garage and try to sell or pay for warehousing space for those. Print on demand has really revolutionized the independent publishing industry because you don't have to pay a huge amount of money up front to purchase thousands of copies of your book and then, like I say, have them in your garage and try to sell them. You'll also have to set your prices, upload all the files to retail sites and print on demand company sites, and do all the marketing and distribution for your book. If you want to have a book launch event, you'll have to organize that as well. One thing to keep in mind is that though traditional publishing companies do take on the costs for all these things, they also take most of the profits from the book sales. So you will receive a royalty. Often that is around 10% of the book sales after other costs are deducted. So the publishing company gets the majority of the profits from the book. Often the traditional publishing company will pay an author what's called an advance, which is a certain amount of money that they pay to buy the book's rights from you, and then you receive that amount of money. You don't actually start receiving royalties like your 10% of book sales until the royalties you would receive add up to the amount of the advance. Many authors get paid the advance and that's all they ever make from their books because the royalties don't ever earn out is what it's called, when your amount of the royalty payments you would have made equals the amount of the advance the publisher already paid you. That's called earning out. And then after that, you start receiving royalties on top of it. The final factor we need to consider when choosing a publishing model is control. Traditional publishing houses are businesses, so their main goal is to make a profit. For this reason, their editors may want to change things about your book to make it what they would consider more marketable, even if the author doesn't want that change to happen. This is really true about titles. Often a publishing company will change the title of the book. They may have different ideas about what should go on the cover. They may even want you to get rid of a viewpoint character who they think doesn't serve the story. Some of these changes can really make the book better, absolutely, but some of them may not sit well with the author. It could change the story or the tone or something about the book in a way that the author did not intend. Sometimes authors have a little bit of input on the cover design, often none at all. You wouldn't know what your cover is going to look like until it's done. Many authors do prefer to keep control over all the elements of their books. So when you're publishing independently and working with a freelance editor, you have the final say in whether to accept or reject the suggestions or changes the editor has made. It is, however, a good idea to really pay attention to what the editor is advising, because there is a reason why they will make those suggestions. Good freelance editors have the education, the training to back up their suggestions. So if you do choose to reject something, take that into consideration when you're making that decision. Editors are not perfect, whether they're freelance editors or working for a publishing company, and they can miss things. So just keep in mind that no book that's ever published, whether traditional or independently, is going to be completely free of errors. When you publish independently, you will also be the person to decide what appears on your cover, what the price of the book will be, what the interior will look like if you have a certain design style preference that you want to use, and many other details related to the publishing process. If you haven't done so already, be sure to sign up for my free workshop, 6 Essential Elements of a Powerful Story. Remember, just click the link in the description or visit b2writercoaching.com/workshop. For today's Power Up, consider the 3 factors we discussed: time, cost and responsibility, and control. Make a list of the skills that you may have or the parts of the publishing process that you may feel comfortable with performing yourself. Are you artistic? Maybe you would want to illustrate part of your cover, or maybe you're good at graphic design and can handle the typography on the cover. Are you tech savvy? Maybe you would be comfortable formatting the interior of your book using a software like Vellum or one of the others that are out there. Do you have a nice amount in savings or some discretionary income you could use to hire an editor, formatter, cover designer? Or would you prefer to sacrifice a bit of time and control in order to pursue traditional publishing? Just keep in mind that with traditional publishing, there is no guarantee your book will be accepted. If you know which publishing model you'd like to pursue, then your power up for this week would be to start doing some research. Either researching literary agents and traditional publishing companies to find which is the best fit for your story, or start researching freelance editors, book formatters, cover designers, and which online retailers you may want to use. Whichever publishing model you choose, you'll either need to impress publishers, agents, or your first readers. To do this, you need a compelling main character who grabs their interest and pulls them into the story. In next week's writer coaching session, we will discuss how to write a compelling protagonist, so be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you won't miss it. If you'd like more information on the publishing process, on traditional publishing, independent publishing, book proposals, what goes into that, how to write a synopsis, any of those things, just comment below and let me know. Also, if you have any other requests for writing-related topics for future videos, let me know that as well. And again, if you'd like more information on how to write a query letter, check out this video. In the meantime, let's power up your storytelling.